If you thought you had seen everything in the Ter Stegen affair, wait until you hear what just happened, because Joan Garcia, the great forgotten man in this story, has decided to break his silence in such a powerful way that his words will not only send chills down your spine but shake the very foundations of FC Barcelona. Before we go any further, imagine for a moment, a young goalkeeper full of talent, promise, and determination arrives at Camp Nou with the hope of fighting for his place, of living his dream. But what was supposed to be the beginning of an adventure turns into an administrative nightmare, a labyrinth of broken promises and deafening silences. Joan Garcia, a name many had almost forgotten, is at the heart of a scandal that goes far beyond the mere sporting framework. It all started when Marc-André Ter Stegen, the undisputed starter in goal, refused to sign a medical report that would have allowed the club to free up part of his salary and thus register a second goalkeeper. That second goalkeeper was Joan, a young, ambitious man, hungry for playing time, who had joined Barça with the conviction that he would be given his chance. But very quickly, his enthusiasm ran into a cruel reality, a career blocked by decisions beyond his control, an existence suspended between hope and despair. For months, Joan went through training sessions without knowing if he would ever be allowed to set foot on the Camp Nou pitch. No jersey number, no official registration, no clear answers. Just promises that evaporated like morning dew. Imagine him, every day, on the training grounds, performing drills with mechanical precision, his gaze empty, his soul in tatters. The uncertainty gnawed at him from within, transforming this smiling boy, integrated into the locker room, into a silent shadow. He avoided the jokes of his teammates, the exchanges with Gavi or Fermin, those moments of complicity that make the magic of a team. He was no longer anything but a ghost, a player without status, a passing guest in his own club. The days blended together, monotonous, painful, like an endless loop. Train, listen to instructions, go home without knowing if he still mattered. The emotional impact was devastating. Joan, once so close to his teammates, closed himself off like a clam. He stopped laughing, sharing, believing. Even the coaching staff felt this gap widening. The weeks passed, and with them, the illusions. His entourage, powerless in the face of this situation, finally reacted. Under pressure from his lawyers, Barça had to give in, reluctantly, and grant him an interview. But this was not just any press conference. It was a confession, a cry from the heart. Joan Garcia held nothing back. "I was lied to. You don't play with someone's career like that." These words, delivered with brutal sincerity, struck the management right in the face. Yet, against all expectations, he did not attack Ter Stegen. Quite the opposite. Ter Stegen is within his rights. "I would have done the same thing. Things are done properly, or they are not done at all." In these sentences, there was everything. Anger, yes, but also a rare dignity, support for a teammate, and a scathing critique of a system that had used him as a pawn on a financial chessboard. Joan refused to be the backup goalkeeper, the eternal substitute, the one who waits patiently for his turn without ever complaining. "I want to play, compete, be important," he hammered. And what he revealed is damning. Barça had not recruited him to build a sporting project, but to plug a financial hole under the guise of a so-called bet on the future that never existed. His statements triggered an earthquake. In the locker room, most of his teammates supported him, with some veterans even sending him messages to congratulate him for breaking the code of silence. The fans, however, were divided. Some praised his courage, others felt he had rushed. But everyone recognized one thing. It was time someone spoke up. Joan set a clear ultimatum. The club has until August 15th to register him, otherwise, he will ask to leave as a free agent, citing breach of contract. And this is not an empty threat. Concrete offers have already been made to him, from Eintracht Frankfurt to Villarreal, and even Betis. Clubs that promise him what Barça never offered: playing time, stability, respect. What is at stake here goes far beyond the fate of one goalkeeper. It is a question of credibility for Barça, towards young players, agents, and even its own fans. Joan did not speak only for himself. He spoke for all those talents who sign with shining eyes full of hope and end up relegated to the role of extras, training without hope, swallowing their bitterness in silence. "I was lied to." This phrase resonates like a sledgehammer in the world of Spanish football. It reveals a harsh truth, that of an industry where smiles and press conferences often mask a contempt for the human being. Joan has opened a breach in this wall of silence, letting in a harsh light on practices that too often remain in the shadows. Marc-André ter Stegen, for his part, has remained silent since the beginning of this affair. Yet, his initial refusal to sign that infamous medical report was the trigger for everything. Some have criticized him, accusing him of selfishness. But Joan, in a rare gesture of fair play, defended him. "He did what he had to do," he said, as if to remind us that, in this ruthless world, there are still principles worth more than contracts. The Barça management now finds itself with its back against the wall. What to do? Give in to Joan's demands and risk setting a precedent? Or let him go, at the risk of losing much more than a goalkeeper? Its reputation, its ability to attract young talent, and above all, the trust of those who still believe in its values. Joan García has taken a stand of courage. He has put his future on the line to say, enough, without insulting, without threatening, but with the strength of truth. In a football world riddled with boardroom decisions, hidden clauses, and short-term strategies, he has reminded us that sport is also measured in dignity, consistency, and humanity. Perhaps Barça, this giant with feet of clay, will find a way out, a magical formula to smother the affair with empty words and renewed promises. Maybe the management, masters in the art of communication, will turn this cry of revolt into a simple anecdote, an insignificant detail drowned in the endless stream of news. They are used to it, after all. A press conference here, a polished statement there, a few well-chosen phrases to soothe minds, and voila, we move on. The club regrets the situation but remains confident in its management. Joan García is part of our family, we are working on a solution. The words will be weighed, calculated, emptied of their substance. We'll hear about complex contexts, difficult decisions, the good of the club. And for many, that will be enough. Because in modern football, scandals fade as quickly as they erupt, swept away by the next match, the next transfer, the next controversy. But this time, something is different. Joan García's truth is no longer a locker room rumor or a whisper in the corridors. It is here, raw, undeniable, etched in memory. It has crossed screens, social media, coffee shop discussions. It has forced people to look up from their phones and say, wait, is this really how things work? Because Joan didn't just talk about his own case. He lifted the veil on a system where players, especially young ones, especially those who don't yet have the weight of star status, are too often treated like interchangeable pawns. Numbers on an Excel spreadsheet, adjustable variables in a budget, names that can be erased with a stroke of a pen if the accounts don't add up. And then, there's this era. A time when players, even those suffering injustice, often prefer to grit their teeth. Out of fear. Out of caution. Because they know football is a ruthless world, where one wrong word can earn you the label of problem, exile on the bench, or worse, a quiet exit to a second-division club. So they swallow their pride, smile for the cameras, repeat, everything is fine, even when everything is falling apart. But Joan chose not to play that game. He chose to stand alone against the machine and say, no. Not with violence, not with arrogance, but with quiet determination, the kind of a man who has nothing left to lose, or rather, who realized he had already lost everything by staying silent. It's no coincidence that his words resonated far beyond Barcelona. From La Masia youths to European Academy hopefuls, from agents to fans, many saw themselves in his story. I was promised things too. I waited in silence too. Joan broke the ice. And once the crack is there, it's impossible to seal it back up. Others might dare, in their turn, to raise their voices. Not tomorrow, maybe not in a year, but one day. Because he showed it was possible. That you could say, stop, without burning your wings. That you could demand respect without being labeled ungrateful. So no, this isn't just another episode. It's not a simple passing crisis, a grain of sand in the well-oiled machine of Barça. It's a spotlight on what football has become, an industry where the human element is sometimes the last priority. A reminder that behind the jerseys, the sponsors, and the millions, there are men and women with doubts, dreams, and dignity. Joan García may not have won his battle yet. August 15th will tell us whether he'll finally wear Barca's colors or turn the page elsewhere. But no matter the outcome, he's already won something far more precious than a contract or a title. He's won the right to look people in the eye, knowing he didn't bend. That he didn't sell his soul for a salary or a spot on the bench. He's earned the respect of those who, in the stands or in front of their screens, are tired of lies, half-truths, and careers sacrificed on the altar of financial balances. Those who still believe football, before being a cash machine, is a sport where honor matters. Where a person, even alone, even without support, can stand up and say, enough. And that, no statement, no PR maneuver can ever erase it. Because once symbols are created, they take on a life of their own. They become references, examples, banners. Joan García is now one of them. Not a hero, he'd probably reject that word, but a symbol. One of a football that, sometimes, remembers it is made by humans, for humans. Whatever his future holds, that truth, he has given it to all those who, one day, will hesitate to speak up. And that is a victory that cannot be negotiated.